to get to some NFL rule changes, but we're going to tie it into some rule changes that are happening in the UFL because there's actually some major ones that are going down in the UFL. We'll talk about the Tush Push and that ban in a minute, but one of them, which I think is one of the bigger ones, is not only is it going to be like college football where they're only going to allow 1 foot in bounds instead of two, but field goals are now worth 4 points if you kick them from 60 yards and over. And not only that, Josh, but if you get past the 50-yard line, even if there's a penalty that pushes you back behind the 50-yard line, you have to go for it or kick a field goal on fourth down. There is no punting.
Yeah. I like these changes for the UFL. It'll be interesting to see if the NFL looks at any of these rule changes and decides to put them in themselves. We've seen the NFL do that. Like the new kickoff rule that the NFL utilizes, that came from the UFL.
Yeah, and you saw it immediately and you go, that works.
Yeah. So I think the NFL will take notice of this. It does seem like the UFL, interestingly, is catching some more energy and steam. So I don't think they're going to become big enough that they're going to rival the NFL or anything like that, because the NFL is an absolute juggernaut. But I do think the UFL could become big enough that like people actually recognize it and it becomes its own entity, if you will.
So I think the NFL should try its hardest to almost buy the UFL, if you will, and turn the UFL into a minor league system like the NFL has with Major League Baseball. I think there's so many talented football players out there on practice squads and things like that, and I don't know how you can fill a team up. But there are guys in the UFL. I mean, look no further than a guy like Brandon Aubrey, Cavante Turpin. And the Cowboys are maybe one of the most famous teams for using guys in the UFL that have come from there and have made the National Football League. And these rule changes are mostly to obviously help offense and improve scoring. I will say the idea of a 60-yard field goal plus meaning 4 points, I think it's an interesting concept because if you're down by 4, now it's a real interesting strategy because it's like, well, if I'm at the 50, do I go ahead and kick it now and try to tie the game? Or do I risk, getting down to the 30-yard line or what have you, and then I have to score a touchdown? I can't settle for a field goal. So in that situation, I think it's really going to be interesting to play in the strategy, especially because we've seen Cam Whittle, the kicker for the Jaguars, and Brandon Aubrey be able to hit these long field goals now, and kickers' legs are seemingly getting bigger. I love the fact that they are making coaches, once you get beyond the 50, kick a field goal or go for it. I would go even further and add that unless it is to win the game, once you're inside the red zone, you are not allowed to kick a field goal unless you are literally down by 3 or less to again tie the game or go and win the game with under a minute left. Because I think kicking field goals, let's be honest, outside of 60-yarders, they're boring. And we want to see more offense. And I do think that the inclusion, we didn't even talk about this, the teams can go for it for a 3-point conversion from the 8-yard line after scoring a touchdown is another factor where if you have a high-powered offense or you don't trust your defense, maybe you try to get up 9 instead of going up 7 or 8. I find that, again, it's all mathematical. It's all very interesting. I think at a lower level, it works because these guys aren't as skilled as NFL players. The coaches may have been NFL coaches, but they're, retreads in the NFL. They're not as currently up in the rules. Where the NFL has all this talent that I think some of these rule changes would be gimmicky, but I think they work for the UFL.
I'd like to see some of these changes be made in the NFL, but I do want to ask you this. In terms of the 60-plus yard field goal being worth 4 points, do you think that takes some of the offense out of the game?
If you get what I mean. I think it has the potential to. Like I just said, if you're down 4, you know, if you're 3rd and 8 at the 42-yard line or something, the opponent 42, do you bring the field goal unit out there and try to tie the game right there on 3rd or 2nd down? Or do you take the risk of gaining 3 yards and now you have to go for it on 4th down?
Yeah, so that part does concern me that like there might be a drop off in offense and teams might be a little more conservative. Like, oh, we're in field goal range now. We can get 4 points. Forget trying to move the ball down the field. Let's go for the field goal now when it's like midway through the second quarter or something.
I do wonder if the going for it on 4th down and the 1-foot rule, if that sort of will counter the 60-yard field goal. Because in the NFL, unless you're going to half, you don't see 60-yard field goals.
That part is true. Although they've been more frequent, even like
again, this year they have been, but really it's only been Jacksonville and Dallas because they have the kickers that have the legs.
Yeah, Justin Tucker was doing it kind of in his heyday.
But not consistently. Like, it was mostly, again, the end of half situations.
That part is true, yes. But I do wonder, like, with the NFL, if they adopt this rule, would it be the same thing of like, oh, we can get 4 points out of this. Let's take the ball out of our quarterback's hands.
Yeah, good point. Another rule that they have had on is the UFL just said there's going to be no tush push. And isn't it funny that all of a sudden, after last offseason, the whole conversation was, we have to ban the tush push. This play should be illegal. It's going to cause so many injuries. It hasn't yet, but it's going to cause a really big injury. To all of a sudden last year, because of teams either figuring it out or offensive line issues or whatever the issue was, the Eagles were just not as good at it. And now all of a sudden the NFL said, you know what, actually, we don't even care about the play.
Yeah. And there's still going to be people who say it should be banned. By the way, it's not surprising that it was the Green Bay Packers who pushed, no pun intended there, but pushed to ban the play.
Well, again, it's also funny. Buffalo voted to ban it, and they run it now more than Philly does.
Yeah. But, the annoying part with that play is officials can't even call it right, though. Whether it, in terms of like the false starts or offsides, like that play is so hard to officiate. So if it had been banned in the NFL, I would have said, okay, I understand that. Like,
Can I add something though? Now that they haven't done it, and now that this year they haven't done it, if they do it in the future, it's going to look wrong that they did it, because to me, they missed their opportunity to do so.
I agree. But, like, is it as aesthetically pleasing to watch for the fans? Maybe not. Like I said, is it easy for officials to call? No, because there's going to be a false start on the play, most likely. There's going to be, offside or neutral zone infraction, whatever you want to call it. I get so confused about what the difference is between offside and neutral zone infraction.
So neutral zone infraction is when you jump into the neutral zone, you physically make contact with an offensive lineman or an offensive player. Offside is when you jump over the line of scrimmage and you don't make any contact as the ball is being snapped. That's the difference.
Okay, because sometimes like they call one and I'm like, wait, shouldn't it have been the other? Like,
does that make sense though? It's about if you make contact. So if you jump off sides, if I'm a defensive lineman, if I jump and I make contact with another offensive lineman, that is a neutral zone infraction.
It's one of those gray areas where like it almost feels like they're interchangeable, if you will.
Yeah, because I mean the penalty is still the same. It's a 5-yard penalty.
Exactly.
Now,
but that's what I'm saying in terms of the play itself. Like you're most likely going to get one or the other, or like I said, a false start, or we've seen the offense be called for offside on that play.
As a fan of the team that perfected this play, I must say this is my favorite play in the history of football. And
well, no shit, Sherlock.
I'll be honest with you, Josh. Yeah, I said this last year when they were trying to ban it, and it did not get banned by 2 votes. Yeah, I would like us to for one drive. I don't even care if it's in a preseason. Can we run this play all the way down the field? I think it is aesthetically pleasing. I love watching offensive line play. As a small guy, I like watching teams run the football, pound the football, and try to block and win the line of scrimmage because that's what football games come down to. I think it's fascinating watching Josh Allen Bob Sweat over the line 6 times a game. I do, because I find it fascinating to watch the defenses try to figure out how to stop it. You got to get low, which is hard to do when the offensive line's always lower. Jumping it and timing the snap never works because you're going to lose your leverage. And I think the teams that have figured out how to stop it this year figured that out. That the way to stop this play is not to try to time the snap and jump over the top and grab the quarterback. It's to time when the center snaps the ball and you get lower and you push the center back. Because if you do that, if you move the offensive line back, the quarterback has nowhere to go.
See, I think it's aesthetically pleasing to a certain extent, but not when you're running it like 7 or 8 times a game. Like when it's like, late in the game and you got to have it. Yeah, I want to see that play. But when it's like 4th and 1, middle of the second quarter, maybe it's like 10-7. It doesn't feel like it's
But if it's
crucial.
4th and 1 and I need a yard, I'm going to go to the best play to give me a yard. And I'm going to make you to stop it. Maybe a good analogy would be like, in baseball, if it's 0-2 and I throw you a fastball right down the plate and it just comes in at 102 and you can't hit it, I'll throw that pitch every time. It's not my fault you can't hit it.
Your point is totally valid, and I'm not totally disagreeing, but it's like I appreciate it, but when it gets overdone, I'm like, okay, I don't care as much.
The NFL is ultimately a television show. And I know Roger Goodell, I thought he had power, and I could be wrong on this, so if I am wrong, I apologize. I believe if he wanted to, he could have flat out just said, no, this play is illegal. I'm outwanting it. I'm banning it.
Yeah, I think you're right on this.
Instead of putting it to a vote, I think he could have said, no, we're not. And to his credit, he didn't. He put it to a vote.
Yeah. It gets confusing with this whole thing. But again, like, I'm not saying they should ban the play, but I think I'll say it like this: should the play be banned? No, but I think the amount of times, a team is allowed to run it, I think there should be a limit on it.
Okay, so I was wrong. Here's how every rule change works in the NFL. While Goodell can influence the competition committee and lobby owners, ultimate rule changes require a 75% vote from team owners.
Okay. Do you get what I'm saying, though? Like, don't ban the play, but put a limit on how many times you're...
But then you're getting into, like, video game gimmicky territory where it's like, you might as well say, oh, well, then you can't call, 3 screens in a row. Like, I shouldn't have a limit as to how many play calls I can have in this play a game in real life.
It's like, again,
if it's in my playbook, I should call it. To make another analogy in basketball, if a 3-point's wide open, I shouldn't have a limit. We talk about the 3-point shot in the NBA all the time and how it needs to change. I don't think there should be a limit on how many threes you take a game.
Yeah, but it's not like you generally call a specific play to get a 3-point shot.
The Warriors and the Celtics. I would beg to argue.
Okay, the Warriors.
Look at their shot charts.
The Warriors, yes. It doesn't feel like the Celtics generally run plays. They
and every team's changing, but nonetheless,